Hey there. Yeah, I'm waiting for more people to show up right now, too. Hey there. Yeah, well, I guess I might as well start going over stuff now. Anyways, I was saying in chat earlier that I have changed the shader that I used for the environment a little bit here. The shader for the character is still the same as it was. You know, it uses that sort of, just light, dark cell shading. And I had been using that for the environment too, but with the triplanar mapping. But I've altered it a bit. Now it uses a combination of a little bit of the cell shading, but then it also uses some of Unity's own built-in shadow system. And you can just see it kind of gives a little bit of a gradient between things. You can see you can kind of make out the normal mapping of this a little bit better now. Yeah, because when it's either one or the other, it's kind of hard to make out the smaller details. But everything else is still part of it. It's still nice and vibrant, and you still got the rim lighting. But just all in all, I think this does better. And you can see how it starts off really bright, then it kind of goes like right into dark right here, but then after it's there, it kind of has some gradients in through there as the shadows become more intense. And I think I like the effect. So that's what I've been working on in there. And then I've also been working on another scene I created. This is just sort of a test area I threw together for just kind of like kind of idea for a city environment, and allowing you to sort of talk to NPCs. Because I figured I've done a lot with the combat so far, but I haven't really done much with the other core mechanics, like actually being able to interact with people and get information. Don't know why I'm yawning so much right now. So yeah, I just kind of toss this area together just using Pro Builder stuff. Kind of like buildings, street, sidewalk, that kind of crap. Actually, one big thing that did change was previously I had been using what are called physics materials. These are a Unity thing that you can attach to any physics objects, and what they do is they control the friction that it will have with other objects, a few other things as well. But I had been using a sort of frictionless material for the characters, and then a high friction material for the ground, in order to keep characters from if they're on a slope, to keep them from sliding down it. But I ended up solving that a different way. Like right here, normally the character would be sliding down it right now. And actually, one thing I should do in the future is use Unity's kinematic system, so that when characters are idle like this, their feet will actually stick to the ground. But all that I really did, I just... You're going right here. I just added a few more things to just the moving checks here, and it's just if the character's grounded and I haven't already set this to these constraints to freeze all, then it sets it to that, and that just makes it so that if a character is stopped, then they are stopped. They will not, you can't come up and push them around or anything. And then once you start moving again, it just goes into freeze rotation, which is the default that I have for this. All freeze rotation keeps is if you don't have it on, then some weird things start to happen with the rigid body. Like if it's say bumped from one side, then all of a sudden it'll start slowly spinning in that direction that it was bumped. So obviously don't want that for this sort of game. But if I just go back in here into the game, and this area doesn't have any music or anything. And another thing I would like to do is make so that when you're in a, just town or city area like this, that the character, won't have their weapons out. They'll have just sort of a normal kind of carefree stance and not an at the ready one like this. Yeah, if you just go up to this, which is just sort of a test idea for an NPC that I made, and you hit your interact button, then you get that little pop-up there. Very basic right now. So what I want to do is see about livening this up a little bit. And right now I just have this script right here. This is just this kind of interaction script that I tossed together. And like you can see already, I'm planning ahead here because this is not its own mono behavior. This derives from a core interactable script that I made. And let's see here if I can open that up as well. Yeah, right there, yeah, just public, abstract class, interactable, and this is the core mono behavior, because I would like to have multiple things that kind of use the basic foundations. So like, you know, interacting with an NPC would use, you know, some similar calls as, say, like interacting with a object, like opening a treasure chest. And yeah, right here, this is just the NPC interact. You can see very basic. It has a thing right here for the text box. And then it also has an on trigger enter right here, which if you see here, this object has essentially two different colliders to it. Just realized that's that was too high. Yeah, if I just go in here, it's got the core collider here just for the capsule part, which same sort of capsule collider that all the characters and enemies have. Come on. Work with me here. But then it also has this collider here on the outside, which is just a sphere collider, and this one is set to a trigger. So that means that, you know, when the right object enters it, it will, you know, go through certain things. So you see right here, yeah, on trigger enter is right here, and it just checks if the collider that entered it has the tag of player. Then it goes through this here, which this just this is just a call that changes some of the actions that can be done depending on if there's something interactable nearby. So, you know, normally if you like the what do I want to say here? The left click of the mouse right now, it can be used to, you know, either perform a basic attack, or it can be used to, you know, interact with something, and it all depends on this. And it also makes sure to set the, you know, object that it's able to interact with to this current one. And same thing right here. There's another thing for just once you exit, it, you know, sets this here to false and then this to null. So yeah, it's very basic, and all this does right now is that when you interact, all it does gets a text box and it sets it to active. As you can see right here, this is it. It's turned off right now, but then when you turn it on, you get the hello world thing. And what I should probably also do is, I've been toying around with this. This is kind of a new thing Unity didn't have before, which is the text mesh. Before, if you wanted to do like letters or numbers in, say, like, you know, really anywhere, you had to use the Unity UI. And there's still some things that I need it for, like for the damage indicators that use the UI, because this there's some things that you can't set once the game is running, like the color right here. Once that's set, you can't do anything. You can't animate that property like you can with the UI. Maybe they'll do that eventually, but right now you can't. But this is apparently also a lot lighter weight than the UI, so using this doesn't take up as much rendering power. But for right now, one thing I should do for this I have this turn to player script right here. Let's turn this off, get the game running again. And now when I do this, there we go. Now you can see that this at least rotates to face the camera now. I actually really like this text mesh because you can see that no matter where it is, it renders in front of other objects. So you're right there, you can see it renders in front of Spirit. And this is actually just the same script that I use for the scribble in order to get its body always facing the player. And it's a very simple script. Hey there. I've been showing off some of the things that I'm working on currently, but I can go back and show this. I'd already shown the others here, but yeah, you can see I changed the environment shader a little bit. So you can see it's still nice and vibrant, but you know, once it makes a shift into you know, showing the dark areas, you can see that it also has a little bit more in the way of gradient going on there. And another thing that's good is that even at a distance, it still looks good, whereas with the previous shader I was using, it didn't. I guess Unity is kind of weird when you mess with the A10 value in a shader, which, like, I mess with that value for the character shader, which is how, you know, it has sort of the multiple levels of shading that it does. If I go, you can see how, like, even if you're in a dark area, it still has two different types of shading. You know, when you mess with that value, you can see you can obviously get some nice looking effects, but the downside is that it starts at a distance. It can look really weird, which isn't so much of an issue with characters, since, you know, once you get to a certain distance, you can't see them anyways all that much. But for environments, yeah, it can get a little odd. In fact, no, actually I can demonstrate here. This right here is using the current environment shader. Now if I just switch it over to this shader, you see now it's shaded. It's using the same shader as the characters. It doesn't look so bad at this distance, but as you start to zoom out, yeah, like right here, right in through there, you can kind of see it. Got that sort of weird kind of artifacting popping in there. So anyways, enough about that technical stuff. Let's go back to actually getting some text that looks pretty good. Now for this, I'm going to go back to a, see here, I think I have it somewhere. Was not in here, but in the original version of Nythra, back when this was going to be a dungeon crawler. Anyways, there is a certain piece of code in here that I would like to reuse from this because it was actually kind of nice. And here it is right here. So you can see here I have this display text function. And what it does is this uses what's called a coroutine. And then this is the coroutine right here. This has to be declared as a I enumerator. And see, this text scroll and just takes in a string, which is just the text. And then what this does is it has the text show up gradually. So I'm just going to snag all this right here. Okay, now it's giving me some red lines because, you know, it's looking for a lot of variables that are not actually in here. Yeah, luckily the text box variable is the same, but everything else is obviously different here, so I'm going to need to set up a few things. So I'll take this and let's add some new variables. And bool. And let's go ahead and comment this out. Don't really need that. But text active. Actually, you know what? I don't even actually need this. All I need to do is get rid of that. And then okay, so instead of checking for a separate active variable, I'll just go ahead and use whether or not the text box itself is active according to Unity's own parameters. And for text speed, let's add that. Let's make this one public. And then just need to change this component here. You might have just heard Lexi in the background. Yeah, it sounds like she's getting a treat right now. Okay, so I've got all of this in here. So then now underneath the interact, I need to put this in. Yeah, I know what you mean. Some things just don't seem to work with all mines. Like, I tried using Unreal Engine's version of scripting, which is where you can basically create a kind of flowchart system instead of writing out code, and I just could not wrap my mind around it. I don't know how, but, you know, just goes to show that not everybody thinks the same way. So then display text and Unreal System is it's essentially this visual system where you can drag in you can drag blocks into the flowchart that represent certain functions like if statements, and then you can the idea is that you can see sort of the flow of how it works. Like with the if statements, you'll see that there's two different branching paths. And I mean, it's definitely a cool concept, but like I said, I just could not wrap my mind around it. Okay, so I've got all this in here. So now let's actually try this. Oh. Okay, and you can see a little problem already here is that instead of adding to it, or instead of replacing it, it added to it. So yeah, first thing I should do here is that when Actually, no, I should put in here. I'll put it in here. Text equals. Okay, so to start with, this should set the text box to a complete blank. And also, let's go in here and set the text speed. By setting this speed lower, you'll actually make it faster, because this controls the number of seconds in between each letter. So let's go ahead and set it to 25. And that's saved. Let's go in here. And okay, so now we have what we wanted. We have so the letters appearing gradually there. Obviously it's still there, which is good. So actually also, the good thing about this is that we can always add and change stuff to it. So first of all, I'm going to set the text to black. And now what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and add a plane to this. Shall rotate it. And let's also move it over to kind of the center of this. And also scale it down. So we now kind of have a little text box almost. The great thing is that none of this has to be permanent. You know, this is just to see if I can do it. So that's part of that. Now turn that off, and turns everything off. Good. And now let's see. Okay, good. So yeah, it actually keeps everything there. So actually, probably what I shall do for this is turn off the receiving and casting of shadows for that. since it isn't really a physical object, it's more of a more of an abstract thought process. You know, this isn't Deadpool. We don't need text objects being physical things in the world. Let's just try that again. Okay, so that still pops up. And now it's not casting any shadows. However, it is colliding with other objects and clipping into them. So probably what I should do down the road, if I decide I want to stick with this method, is essentially make a stencil mask, which will make sure that it's rendered on top of everything else. Yeah, so far that is not bad. However, this can still be improved even just for the time being. Because one thing is that while text is going, the character is still able to move. And, you know, obviously during a conversation that's a little bit rude, so we want to lock the character in place. Now the good thing is that I have thought ahead in many regards. Here in my user input script, now what I should do is, that's not it. Here we go, NPC interact. Well, he's right here. Let's go world control. Oop. I cannot type today. Son of a... So right here is world control.world. This activates, or not activates, but accesses the singleton that's used for everything. Essentially, everything goes through this world control script right here, and there is always one version of it in the scene, and it is actually even carried between scenes. what we can do here is right here, just get the access to the world control. And then from there, access the user input, and I disable it. And this is this is not a very good way to do it, but this is a very simple way, and it works just for a demonstration. It can always be changed later. And the end of this, set it back to true. So let's try this out, and oop. Okay, now there's definitely something weird. So that when you disable it and the character is moving, the character does not stop moving. And yeah, that's because the footstep sounds are tied to the character and not to the thing, whatever you're walking on. Yeah, you can see here. Yeah, the character still keeps moving. So it's still using its last received input. You know what? Let's change. Oh. Let's change something in here. And let's just add a new variable. As variable input enabled, set to true by default. And now down here, along with this, I shouldn't need to worry about that. Let's just save that and go back to this. That, and it's saved. Good. Okay, so it's still being kind of weird here. I'm thinking it's in how this is coded. See here. Okay, so I made a slight change here. I just went into here and I set these two to 0 by default. And then check if the input is not, if input enabled is false, then it just simply returns out of this. Still kind of weird though. Not sure why the animations keep going like that. Oh, I actually might as well take these up here too. There we go. Oop. Okay, so we had kind of a weird one here. Okay, so you can actually keep clicking it and yeah, it'll start getting really weird there. Oh god, I'm getting flashbacks to watching Vinesauce corruptions. So, okay, another thing that we should do to this a little check here. Now let's see if we can get this to work perfectly. Perfect. Okay, yeah, now You know, when I go in here and I click, I'm locked in place. And no matter how many times I click, it doesn't start the whole thing over again. And yeah, probably what I can do later on is, say, like when you're within range, you can have a prompt that'll pop up saying that you can talk. And then probably also, because like right now, yeah, I can even be facing away and it'll work. And I probably want something that will, you know, make the character face towards whoever they're talking with. But like I said, this is really basic right now, and this is just for testing purposes. But hey, everything that I've done in here started out like this, so. Yeah, I'll probably be tinkering around with this whole setup here some more in the future. I would like to use this for testing, say like, you know, entering buildings, or you know, say even like, you know, you talk to one person, they say something, and then, you know, you talk to someone else and they'll say something like completely different depending on, you know, what you've already done. And yeah, a lot of times the glitches are pretty entertaining. Probably also maybe widen the little area that you can speak to them within. Because, like, I can click it right now and it's not doing anything. Even though, I mean, it looks like it, like, you know, should. Yeah, you need to like be right here in order for it to work. I should probably make it a little more lenient. But hey, at least it works, and even with this text mesh, it was able to use more or less the same code that I had already written for a game that was, you know, just using UI text. Well, anyways, it's past 8:30 now. I should probably cut the stream here. But this is a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to show off some of the new things that I have, and even just kind of give you a taste of what it's like to, you know, try adding in some new things here and there. Yeah, and I think this is really starting to come along, you know. But yeah, I'll just stop the stream right here, and thanks to everyone who showed up today, and I will see you all later.